I'm on the Facebook page.
You're on the Facebook?
Yeah.
Oh, Eric just texted me. He's on his way. He just 8 minutes ago texted me. He's picking up his son from YGB.
Oh my god, no, that would be pretty wild. So I had to stop. Like all my friends from Milwaukee, we all went out to players. I had a burger and went back. So it was really nice. He was so shocked. Just be like, oh my god.
Looks like you got it. Veterans for Peace, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I remember you.
Yeah, how are you doing?
Not too bad.
I'm not saying. I know. It's like something I definitely like for that. It's very tempting.
They're actually probably on the fringe.
I don't know who's starting up.
Welcome everyone. We're going to get started in a minute, but if there are any speakers here who haven't checked in, please come up to the top of the steps. Thank you.
I'm gonna do a quick Facebook Live.
Cal?
Oh, hey, Derek. How are you?
So I need firewire cable for this.
I got the one.
Okay.
How low are you on battery?
I am at
Sorry, I'll be right with you.
50 right now.
I can trade it back and forth.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. Derek is like the president of the WPA that I'm working with that helps set this up.
Hi, Derek. Hi. How you doing? Gary and Merle. Oh, good to meet you.
Wisconsin Progressive Alliance, Derek's baby over there. I kind of joined a little bit at the beginning.
You kind of blew it up for me.
Yeah, well, helped out.
Yeah, well, Dale's a great guy. He is. Awesome. Oh, yeah. So I am going to... Who did we get for LGBT? Oh, sorry. Who did we get for LGBTQ?
Amber Buddha. She's with Outreach. She's right over there.
Is she talked to Linda yet? Okay, so she's good to go. Awesome. We got Max Blaska. He's an evangelicus. Actually,
Around here somewhere, I heard him talking on.
actually, his dad is one of like the more prominent conservatives. But yeah, so it's actually, we're reaching across the aisle.
Amber on the schedule, right? I married him up, but Linda kind of, and she's in pain for good things. That's Amber and that's Linda. Going first.
Okay. Where are we speaking? What? Anybody else here? How you doing? All right.
How you doing?
When I said typing,
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming tonight. I'm Linda Kessel. I'm an organizer with Indivisible Madison. And with me is Beth Allman and Derek Barcelo. Beth is also with Indivisible Madison, and they're both members of Wisconsin Progressive Alliance. we were all very instrumental in putting this together, and we're so excited to see so many people join us here tonight. I just wanted to tell you a little bit about Indivisible. If you don't know, we are guided by 3 principles to resist the Trump, Ryan, and Walker corrupt agenda. Demand that our own members of Congress serve as our voice in Washington, D.C., and embrace progressive values. We model inclusion, respect, and fairness in all of our actions. The Indivisible Guide was written by former progressive congressional staffers who saw the Tea Party beat back President Obama's agenda. They realized that if a minority in Congress can do that with these tactics, then look at what the majority can do. We've been very excited to do a lot of rapid response events like this. This is the biggest one so far. We've also done, we did a die-in 2 days after the House vote on health care. And so it's been an exhausting and exciting time. I'd like to invite you to some of our activities. We have Resist Trump Tuesday. We have training on voter registration, op-eds and letters to the editor, phone banking, local politics with our Wisconsin Revolution and the Democratic Party, social events, deep dives, which is a more substantive information about an issue. We have newsletters, a monthly assembly. So we'd really love for you to look at our Facebook page and see if you'd like to join us. So I'm going to hand it over to Beth. Thank you.
Hi everybody, as Linda said, my name's Beth Alleman and I'm with Indivisible Madison and the Wisconsin Progressive Alliance. Thank you so much for coming today, this is incredible. So on social media I've seen several iterations of a common idea. If you ever wondered what you would have done at the start of the Holocaust, it's whatever you're doing right now. Will you stay home and ignore the news, or will you take action to create the world you want? Will you speak out against intolerance and injustice, or will you stay silent and allow hate and evil to spread? This is why we are all here right now, to stand in solidarity with those fighting hatred and racism in Charlottesville and to send a clear message. We will not allow it to continue. As someone who is bisexual, I came of age in Boys Town in Chicago. I spent many evenings listening to the stories of individuals from the LGBTQ community who were egged and beaten in the 80s, who tentatively came out in fear in the 90s, who fought for equal rights for decades, and who to this day are called derogatory terms in the streets just for existing. As a woman, I had a kindergarten teacher tell me it was a waste for girls to learn advanced math because they needed to be good mothers and wives. I've been taunted and mocked for being the only girl on an all-boys baseball team. I've been afraid for my safety, approached and harassed just for daring to be a woman walking home alone at night. Catcalls and sexual advances are a weekly and sometimes daily occurrence. I've been demeaned, ignored, and looked over for my gender. The world can seem like a terrible, overwhelming place at times. Hate can seem so loud, but look at how many of us are here. Love, kindness, and compassion can be louder. Every day of our lives, every moment is filled with choices. Will I stand for what is right? Will I speak out against racism and bigotry, or will I stay silent? Will I take action and fight to make the world a better place, or will I sit back and let evil in the world unfold around me? You may think you're just one person, but again, look at all of us here. Little actions add up to big ones. Change can happen if people are motivated and persistent. We have done amazing things since Trump took office in January. We have stopped major pieces of legislation that would hurt millions. We have stood up and said, not today, not here, this is not acceptable in my country. So often I hear, what can I do? This feels so insurmountable. What I say is this, do something, do anything. Look at all of the groups here today and co-sponsoring the event. Join and help, do whatever you can. Your action may feel small, but it's being combined with all the actions of all the other activists around the country, and each bit matters. What you do matters. This is why I'm a part of Indivisible Madison and the Wisconsin Progressive Alliance. Activists, individuals working together can move mountains. 26 hours ago, this rally was somebody's idea, one of our activists, Derek Munson. People came together, rallied, offered help, support, and look now. Don't ever feel like you're not powerful. One more thing I will say is that hateful, bigoted people fill many offices of government in our country. If we apply this action and power that we have, we can change that, but we must come together like we're doing today. One thing we can do to help is fight voter suppression. Just this past month, Wisconsin completed its purges of our voter rolls. 10% of the list of registered voters in Wisconsin was removed, about 35,000 people. Of that, 12% were from right here in Dane County, and almost a quarter were from Milwaukee County. We already have ongoing voter roll maintenance, so who were these people being removed? If we want to elect legislators who fight racist, bigoted policies, we must get involved. Help register voters in your area. Help them get appropriate IDs to vote. Fight misinformation with the truth, and work to expand early voting hours and locations in your community. Reach out to organizations working on this like One Wisconsin Now, League of Women Voters, the Dane County Voter ID Coalition, and other groups like this. We cannot stop if there is even one person being denied their right to vote. And those of us who have no barriers to voting can never take it for granted. Again, I want to thank everyone for coming out on a Sunday evening and taking this action to stand in solidarity with those fighting against hate, racism, white supremacy, and bigotry. I hope this is one action of many.
Tonight, our gathering is one of 682 events across the country in solidarity with Charlottesville. From Indivisible Charlottesville, I'd like to share this information, their statement. Thank you all for gathering in solidarity with Charlottesville. We are all sad and angry after the events of Friday and Saturday. We grieve especially for the family of Heather Hare. But yesterday was also inspiring because we saw thousands of people as diverse as America itself standing shoulder to shoulder to defend our home against racism and hate. We at Indivisible Charlottesville ask that you do 3 things on behalf of our city. First, redouble your support for the organizations in your communities who are already fighting racism, violence, discrimination, inequality, and hatred. On Friday and Saturday in Charlottesville, groups like Black Lives Matter and clergy from all local communities of faith were on the front lines against white supremacist terror. You can honor their bravery and sacrifice by helping their work wherever you live. Second, don't let your elected officials off the hook. This administration is run by white supremacists, and every day your representatives don't speak out and take action against them. They enable the kind of terrorism that descended on our city. Far too many politicians yesterday waited until an innocent person had been killed before they condemned neo-Nazis. If your elected officials are complicit in the white supremacy that soils this White House, don't let your neighbors forget it. Not today, not tomorrow, and not on election day. Third, do not be afraid and do not be intimidated. The guns and swastikas and jackboots yesterday were meant to scare all of us, but especially to scare immigrants and people of color from exercising their constitutional rights. So let's fight back with the ballot. Register people to vote, get them the IDs they need, drive them to the polls, and elect candidates with the commitment to fighting white supremacy in every way they can. Again, thank you for all your being here. You should know that your presence only really does make a difference to us in Charlottesville. After a dark and tragic weekend, the vigils and rallies all around the country show us that the vast majority of Americans are on the side of love and peace. We'll grieve today, but tomorrow we'll get back to work. We hope you will join us. So we'd like to welcome someone who knows about Madison and how they turn out for this. This is Mayor Paul Soglin.
Thank you. we stand united in support of the good people of Charlottesville, Virginia. We want to send a firm message that hate and violence have no place in our public square. We urge every leader at every level of government to be firm that in this year 2017, there is no place in America for the display of violence that we saw in Charlottesville. It is critical that violent hate groups such as the KKK, the Nazis, the white supremacists be identified and repudiated by all responsible elected officials, starting with the President of the United States. Supporting an elected official shall not provide cover to anyone who preaches hatred, bigotry, violence, or any form of destruction of our great American values. There is much that is right about this great country, but we have some very serious problems. One is the vast economic inequality that exists from one end of this nation to the other. Hardworking people should not find themselves living from paycheck to paycheck. The U.S. economy is rigged against ordinary people. That is a reason to be angry. It is not a reason to be violent. Throughout history, in this country and around the world, there have been despots and demagogues who would exploit that anger and turn people against one another based on race, religion, nationality, sexual orientation, gender, culture, and creed. We will not be part of that bigotry. We will be the people who shatter the myth of racial, ethnic, and religious superiority. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is CV Vitolo Haddad. I direct the debate team here at UW-Madison, and I have the great honor of introducing some of our speakers tonight. To defeat white supremacy and fascism, there's one thing that's always been true, that we must adopt a clear position of economic and social justice, and we must advocate for it as forcefully as possible. These speakers represent clear articulations of the truths in which we all believe, and I hope that listening to them tonight makes you feel empowered to advance these truths bluntly and without reservation in your own lives. And to get us started, I'd like to introduce Mo Cheeks, who is with the Madison City Council, the founder of Leading Locally, a speaker at the Women's March, and a fighter for progress and racial equality here in Madison.
Thank you all for being here. This is a beautiful audience. My name is Mo Cheeks, and I don't want to have to be here. It's 2017. So one of the things that I would like to be very clear about is not only do I not want to be here, I didn't want to be here at the Women's March. I didn't want to have to organize hundreds of people for Leading Locally to fight back against the racism and hatred and sexism of Donald Trump's election. But I tell you what, I'm going to keep showing up. Just like you're going to keep showing up in times like this, when we're afraid, when we don't know what's going on in our community. Listen, the president said one of the most despicable things that I've seen him say, and he said a lot of garbage. On Twitter the other day, he said that on both sides, there's a lot to be regretted on this. Shame! Shame, right? There were not two sides to this. Let's be very clear about that. We saw white supremacists come out under the guise, the disguise of a protest. They were armed with batons and pepper spray, with guns. They were prepared for a race riot that day. They were prepared for the terrorism and violence that they incited. You stand here today in solidarity. It feels like, in moments like this, that we stand in solidarity with some sort of political faction. We stand in solidarity for the family of the young lady who lost her life to the KKK in 2017. We stand in solidarity for the families that are afraid in Charlottesville right now. People of color having to tell their kids, in anticipation of this weekend, I'm going to send you out of town. I don't want you to be in this community because it's not safe in 2017. These people came out armed for this violence. Growing up in the 90s, I'm an 80s baby, 90s baby. Growing up, I was taught that racism is a thing that is bad, that maybe our country is getting better at putting aside. Slavery is a thing of the past. We've moved past Jim Crow. We've desegregated our schools, and we're getting better as a country. And so a whole generation banked on this idea that our country was getting better by inertia, that this racism was something that was being swept under the rug and would be gone with the passing of a generation that held that tight as they grew up. That's not real, folks. Racism is alive and real in the hearts of the 20-year-old and 30-year-old and 40-year-old white terrorists that we saw in Charlottesville this weekend. That doesn't go away by inertia. It goes away by us fighting against it. That's why you're here, because we have to fight against the hatred. The president reminded us of something very wise. Now, know that for the rest of my whole life, when I say the president, I'm talking about Barack Obama. The president reminded us of the wise words of Nelson Mandela the other day, on Twitter yesterday, when he said that racism, that hatred for people that don't look like us, that don't practice religion like us, that's not something that we're born with. That's something that we're taught. The people who attacked, who showed up to create fear and violence in Charlottesville, were taught that hatred. Those were the children of the people who were upset about desegregation, who ignored redlining, who felt comfortable oppressing and disrespecting people because that was socially acceptable at a time. It was socially acceptable so long as you wore a hood. We don't have to wear hoods anymore in Donald Trump's America. This is something that we should regard as one of the most pressing concerns in our country, in our states, and in our community. That violence and fear and hatred is getting a platform. So as much as that hatred can be taught, it can be untaught. The love that will fight against hatred is something that we have to teach each other, that we have to teach our children. Round of applause for the folks in the audience that have kids out here today. I see some of these parents out here. I love you all so much. This is the where do we go from here section. So, this is what I need you to know. Racism, hate have no place here. I love you. So this is what I need you to know. The only way that we get past this is by going out of here and talking to the folks that weren't here and asking them why not. There's a lot of good reasons why you're not here, right? But it's an opportunity to create a conversation for folks. You want to go back to your workplaces and start conversations. You want to go back to your places of worship. A lot of folks may have gone to a worship service this weekend. If you didn't hear from the pulpit a prayer about what's going in Charlottesville, you need to send an email and say, why didn't we hear about that? Amen. Thank you. You need to go back to your workplace and say, you need to go back to your political party convention. You need to go back to your civic organization and say, we need to have a conversation about this, because this hatred, this violence, this getting a platform for terrorism against Americans by Americans is the most pressing concern in our country right now. We have to stand together in the name of love to fight back against hate. And we have to do that every day. Every day. So as you go out of here, listen, it is easy. It is easy for elected officials to stand in front of you and denounce something that happened in somebody else's city. You need to send an email to any elected official you don't hear from and say, I need to hear your position on this. I need you to be public against this. You need to say that to your bosses, to your schools, to your children's teachers. Because speaking about the need for love is the only way that we move forward. And the only way that we move to having a country, there's a lot of people here. The only way that we move to having a country that we can be sufficiently proud of. So I just want you to know that it's going to continue to be uncomfortable to have those conversations with people you don't usually talk to about race, people you don't usually talk to about terrorism, about politics. The only way that we're going to live up to our own standards as a community, as a city, as a state, as a country, as Americans, as people, is by becoming uncomfortable, by getting discontent with the status quo and saying, listen, let me talk about this. Let me tell you why it's important that I show love to you and why it's important that you show love to that person. I love you all. Thank you so much for being here. Keep showing love. This is the only way we're going to win.
Thank you so much, Mo. And I think this is really a testament to one thing that we have always known to be true, and one thing that gives us immense power is that we are a community of people abundantly capable of both mourning and organizing at the same time. And I think that there's something really beautiful and powerful about that. And so I would like to introduce our next speaker, Angelo D., who is with Industrial Workers of the World. Although he only joined in February, he helped to form the local chapter of the General Defense Committee and has been incredibly committed within that fight. So welcome, Angelo.
All right, let me just pull up my speech here. Yesterday, we lost a comrade to fascist terrorism. There's no other way to put it. Now, to set the record straight, there was a lot of talk about if the woman who died was, in fact, a member of the Industrial Workers of the World. We do not believe that at this time, but frankly, it doesn't matter because she was an anti-fascist. She was fighting against fascism, against hate, and against white supremacy. Heather Hare was in Charlottesville for the same reason all of our comrades were, because she knew that the rhetoric espoused by these neo-Nazi groups is not something that can be discussed and debated. It needs to be resisted in every way, shape, and form. The IWW has always stood for inclusion. When other labor unions in the early 1900s wouldn't allow people of color or women in their ranks, the IWW said, yes, you can be part of the one big union. The industrial unionism that the IWW stands for is best summed up by our slogan, an injury to one is an injury to all. Yesterday was not an isolated incident. In June 2015, Dylan Roof, inspired by the Nazi website Daily Stormer, murdered 9 people in a historic black church in Charlottesville, Charleston, South Carolina. He was trying to start a race war. November 2015, regulars of hateful sections of the website 4chan opened fire on Black Lives Matter activists in Minneapolis. Inauguration Day in Washington, a fellow worker in the Industrial Workers of the World was shot by someone whose sole goal was to bash some snowflakes. In February, a U.S. Navy vet killed an Indian engineer in Kansas while yelling, "Get out of my country." March, a subscriber to numerous alt-right YouTube channels drove from Baltimore to New York with the sole purpose of killing a random black person. Rest in peace, Timothy Kaufman, excuse me. And then June, Jeremy Christian in Portland stabbed 3, killing 2 because they were protecting a Muslim woman that he was assaulting. In the wake of this rise in fascist terror, we cannot rely on the apparatus of the state to protect us. Historically, those in power, particularly law enforcement, have been on the side of fascists. They protect and serve them while we get pepper sprayed, beaten, and arrested.
Tell it.
We must take community self-defense into our own hands and build alternative structures that circumvent those that wish to uphold the patriarchal white supremacy. The General Defense Committee has been working hard to build these structures. We have a child care working group that meets on Wednesdays with the goal of providing child care to people who wish to go to political events. We also have a self-defense group that we have been practicing martial arts techniques in the parks on the weekends. We also are offering our own services to our comrades who have been confronted by Nazis in the community in order to make our streets safer. So I guess you're asking, what steps can I take in order to ensure the safety of your friends and loved ones? Take up kickboxing class. Keep some pepper spray with you. Buy a firearm and punch a Nazi because Nazis should be beaten. That's not how you fight fascism.
They're already killing us. They're already killing us.
Fascists are killing us, and they will not respond to rhetoric.
Yeah, it's a nuanced conversation.
But self-defense is.
Violence is neutral. Violence is a tool. It's nothing. It's not moral. There's nothing morally wrong or correct or right
it's a
about violence.
nuanced conversation.
I think we're all very grateful for the diversity of perspectives here.
Yes.
And I think that, if nothing else, we can appreciate that in the spirit of deliberation, we should hear all of these speakers out if that's a value that we hold.
Thank you.
And so I would love to introduce Emily Kuhn. She is with One My Vote. She is a federal employee and the chief design officer at One My Vote and a former Women's Caucus chair. So please give a warm welcome to Emily.
Good evening, everyone. My thoughts are with Charlottesville and all of their families. In 2014, my husband and I attempted to explain the national news to my 18-month-old son, Tom. We stumbled. We talked social justice and equality with him. He was 18 months old. We paused and tried again, because that's dialoguing. I'm going to read you a post because I have a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. I don't have time to think all the time, but this was a pretty good one. August 14th, 2014. Friends, tonight, me and Sam attempted to explain the national news coverage of Ferguson, Missouri to Tom. Sam wasn't so sure that we should try to explain the need for social justice to a toddler. But after an hour of news watching, I said, let's try to explain the world around him. And we stumbled. But that's okay, because this is how the dialogue begins. And we will try again. To my friends in Missouri, my thoughts are with you and your families. To my son, know that we love you. We want you to respect others. And we hope that you will grow to be open-minded, be kind to others, and be a little bit feisty like your mama. Yeah. This was well liked, by the way. So in the beginning, I wanted to fix my hometown of St. Louis, and yes, I did come north when I was 18 to come to college. I came north to Wisconsin. I came to the safe land in the great state of Wisconsin. And after time and living in other states, I chose Wisconsin to have my babies. There's a reason I came to Wisconsin. I came back to Wisconsin. I wanted to fix my hometown, and 3 months of pondering, I realized that I had gifts and talents in technology, and I wanted to help voters. And like they started in the beginning, we want to make sure everyone has the right to vote. We want everyone to feel comfortable voting, that they come to the voting booth and they come together. At that time, I also decided to start running for office. I haven't run yet, but gosh darn it, I went through the training. And I found my voice. And with that, I found a Merge and my Merge sister, Barbara McKinney. My sweet children have knocked so many doors for her, they're pros. Thank you, Barbara. I want to share with you guys that I was the Women's Caucus chair, and we helped a lot of women learn. And a lot of men showed up on how to learn how to run for office. And I thank those that have come before us. And at the end of the day, I teach my kids to respect others, to always make room at the table, and to talk to others no matter their background, whether it's socioeconomic, race, religion. And just like in my post in 2014, I'm still trying to explain injustice to my kids. Like the speakers before me, I'm getting tired, but it's important. And some days I stumble. I still wonder if I could have said it better. And in the end, I think of those that came before me. My parents started talking to me at the age of 9 about social justice and unfairness. It's what I saw in the 1980s in St. Louis. I once asked my father if he was a racist. I say that to you with hesitation. I love my father, but he was not perfect. And I say that today because we do see things day in and day out, and the children are watching. And what are we doing? What are we saying? But it was his actions that told me that he was not a racist, and that's why I asked. I said, Dad, are you a racist? And he said, why would you ever say such a thing? I said, because your words, it's what you say. But you just helped a black man up that hill. I said, why would you do that as a racist? And he said to me, Emily, that man is my brother. He's a POW in a wheelchair. How could I not help him? And I saw my father act in that moment, and we had a hard conversation. And I say this today because I try to have those hard conversations with my children, and I may not be normal, but I want you all to come together and start acting. Because if you say all the right words, but you're not acting, then your acts speak louder than your words. And you need to keep that in mind and start going forward. Thank you. In the end, I'm going to use my dad's favorite poet, who's Emily Dickinson. And he says, if I can stop one heart from breaking, I shall not live in vain. If I can ease one life the aching, or cool one pain, or help one fainting robin onto his nest again, I shall not live in vain. And I tell you that today because every day when I manage people or I help the country move forward, I think of that first line. All I have to do is help one person, and I can do that. Thank you.
As I've been kind of looking through the roster of speakers we've had and people I'm really excited about, one thing I can't help but think is looking out at this crowd, how incredible it is, how many powerful women we have here. And when you look at the pictures from the rally in Charlottesville, you didn't see a lot of women. And we know that they were there in support complicitly, but can we take a moment to appreciate that we know that women are powerful, that we want everyone to be here, that this movement is something So, without further ado, I would love to introduce Shiva Bidar. She is the City of Madison Common Council.
Thank you so much. Buenas noches. Buenas noches. So first and foremost, I would like to honor the land that we stand on. It's Ho-Chunk land. And it is. And here we are in a country that tries to tell me that I don't have a right to be here as a first-generation immigrant. And It's been a very, very difficult few months for all of you, but especially for those of us who are people of color and immigrants. And this is not new to us, and I just want to make sure that we all understand that this is a long history for us to be felt marginalized, to feel like we don't belong in this country. It just now has come to a place where we feel that everybody can understand now the struggle that we are going through, and we really hope that you will continue joining us in the struggle, that you will continue fighting with us. So I'm very proud to stand here in a city that is a sanctuary city, whether we want to call it or not. I call it a sanctuary city. It's a great city, and we can continue be in solidarity with the rest of the country, but we must really continue to also make sure that we do what we can day in and day out in our own city to make sure that we don't continue to have the racism and the anti-immigrant sentiments that, again, we live on a daily basis. So please continue the struggle with us and understand that we come from a place that is a bit different, a place where we feel this deeply every day when we leave our houses, and take that to heart. And I hope that someday my family won't be banned anymore to come to this country to visit me, that we will be back to the day that I decided to run for city council, which is the evening that Barack Obama was elected president of my country, my land now. So I know that change will come, and justice is on our side, and history will be on our side too. Thank you so much for being here. It's beautiful.
Thank you so much. So next, I'd like to introduce Savian Castro. He is with One Wisconsin now. He's a research assistant there, and is also a UW-Madison senior. So I love getting to see some students here. So let's please give a warm welcome to Savian.
Well, thank you all for showing up tonight. It's a hard night. Thank you all for showing up. You know, a young person lost their life fighting hate, and so we should all take time to remember and show gratitude for the bravery and courage. But you know, we gain nothing from telling ourselves lies about what happened Friday night. What happened was a band of white supremacists rallied around the statues of Confederate General Robert E. Lee and Thomas Jefferson in a park called Emancipation Park in Virginia, where there were once 490,000 enslaved persons in 1860, nearly 30% of the population, and they beckoned a resurgence of the lost cause. White supremacy is something that will be ingrained in this nation since its founding, since the colonies, and will be there until we have a reckoning of what is going on in this country. And what has failed to happen, and why it may seem callous to say, but why things like Charlotte and will continue to happen until we have a reckoning of slavery in this country and reckon with the long legacy of slavery and Jim Crow. There needs to be a moment of atonement for what happened and what continues to happen. The people that rallied around Confederate General Robert E. Lee are not neo-Nazis. They are white supremacists and they are neo-Confederates. What makes them different from neo-Nazis is that where Nazism happened in Germany after the Holocaust, so Germany actually paid atonement to the victims of the Holocaust. They paid a reparation. The whole nation and the government acknowledged its existence and have fully disavowed it. There are no statutes of Adolf Hitler in Germany like there are of Robert E. Lee in the United States. You are not even allowed to fly a flag with a swastika on it in Germany, yet we still have Americans in this country still flying flags of the Confederate flag. So we do ourselves no favor by trying to distance what happened and compare it to Nazis in Germany, because America is still so far behind when we are trying to reckon with that history. It happens through, we have to build up for a moment of truth and healing in this country, and ultimately pay the debt for the sins that we have accrued through history. And the debt only gets bigger the more we kick it down the road. And so it's bigger than all of us. It doesn't happen in one night. It'll be the work of generations, especially with what's going on right now and the damage being done. But it starts every day. It starts with conversations with family members that may not get it, and it starts with making yourselves uncomfortable. Thank you.
And since you're a senior at UW, you know, I would love to have your voice on the debate team. I'll make a shameless plug for that. But I would love to introduce our next speaker, Ted Glamsky, who is with the Madison Democratic Socialists of America. He's been an organizer and a resident of Madison for 14 years, and very excited to hear him speak today.
On November 19th, Heather Hare posted the following to Facebook: "If you're not outraged, you're not paying attention." On August 12th, Heather stood with hundreds of counter-protesters at a Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia. A white nationalist from Ohio drove his car into the crowd, killing Heather and injuring 19 others. Tonight, we mourn Heather and send our wishes to all those injured to make it home safe. Tomorrow, we organize. If you are not yet politically involved, but the Charlottesville attack angers you, scares you, or saddens you, we need you now more than ever. The fascists and white nationalists of our country are emboldened and organizing. We can stop them by working together. You can bring your knowledge, your skills, your passion, your story, or at the very least, your voice. Politics does not stop and start at the ballot box. The fight for a future without white supremacy, without patriarchy, and without oppression is being fought today. Please join us. If you are working with an organization, ask yourself and your fellow organizers, does our organization's fight go beyond fighting against the enemies we see today? Are we fighting the present systems that allow the enemies to take power in the first place? Racism and oppression have deep roots in this country. And if we do not address the structures that give racism and racist power, our fight is only superficial. When we fight, we must fight for a future that gives everyone the right to be heard, the right to exist, the right to live a happy and healthy life. Find the groups here today fighting for that vision and pledge your group's support. If you side with the white nationalists who carried out this attack, let us be clear. We refuse to meet you with civility. You rely on our deference, our tendency to say, let them say their piece, to spread your hateful and violent language. When we say that we will fight you, we will not do so with guns, bombs, knives, or vehicles. We will do so with our voices. We will expose you. We will take off that white hood and say, look at this man. Do you want to associate with him? When you try to preach your hatred, we will preach our love, and our voices will drown you out. When you try to hide behind the banner of free speech, we will remind you, our speech is also free, and we will not allow you to silence us. When you try to gather and intimidate those you view as inferior, we will continue to stand against it. much like the brave protesters in Charlottesville. Thank you so much to everyone who came out today and all the organizations and officials. I have one last request. Look around you. See the faces of everyone else willing to stand up tonight. They are your partners in the struggle we are facing. We are outraged and we will continue to fight. For Heather, for our injured allies, for everyone who faces injustice and hatred. Thank you so much.
One thing that I really love about this moment is that not all of our speakers were people who were planned. And our next speaker, Max Blaska, is one of those people who sometimes you feel the need, you feel called to speak justice in front of people. And so I'm very excited to welcome Max, who is a Christ Presbyterian Church refugee, a former agnostic turned evangelical Christian who is furious about the way that the religious right has co-opted his religion. So please welcome Max.
Okay, first I want to say it's the refuge group. I'm not a refugee. But that's okay. But sometimes I feel like I'm a refugee in my own country. First off, I want to say I am an evangelical Christian, and this past year was very, very tough. Watching people claiming to be an evangelical Christian supporting one of the most unchristian men in America broke my heart. And before I say what I was going to say, I do want to say that we cannot return violence with violence. And Jesus said, "Turn the other cheek." What a lot of people don't know is that usually when Roman soldiers wanted to attack you, they hit you like this, not eye to eye. But if you turn the other cheek, you're looking at them face to face. And basically saying, you have no power over me. Slap me. Do whatever you want to me. But I'm not moving. And about 15 months ago, Franklin Graham was speaking on the other side of the Capitol. And I felt the urge to speak up because he was basically supporting Donald Trump without saying he was supporting Donald Trump. But one of his aides said, "No, don't. You can talk to him after. He cares about what you have to say." Emailed him, nothing. So if you would allow me, I'd like to say what I want to say to him today, so I can have a voice, if you don't mind. And I'm going to quote scripture. First, 2 Timothy 3. But mark this, there will be terrible times in the last days. People will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, proud, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, without love, unforgiving, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not lovers of the good, treacherous, rash, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying its power, have nothing to do with them. Does that remind you of anyone? Someone who lives in a very, very big white house. And sometimes I wonder, what would Jesus say? I mean, there's the wristbands. What would Jesus do? But the thing is, I am pretty sure I know what Jesus would say, and I hope he's not upset that I updated some of his words. This is from Matthew 23. But how sad for you pundits and politicians, you hypocrites! You don't allow others to enter my new world. You have never lived in my new world, and you won't let others go either. How sad for you pundits and politicians, you hypocrites! You go on Fox News, Facebook, Twitter to make people like you, but when they do, they become even more a servant of evil than you are. How sad for you, you say, if anyone swears by the temple, he does nothing. But if anyone swears by the gold of the temple, he is bound by his oath. How sad for you pundits and politicians, hypocrites, for you speak up against abortion and how this age has separated sex from love and commitment, but you don't do anything about economic immorality. You don't seek justice for the oppressed. You don't take care of this beautiful planet my Father has given you. You have to fight against immorality in every form, not just ones that don't involve your pocketbook and your stock portfolio. Can't you see how blind you are and how blind you are making others? You swat and kill a fly, but you ignore the wild elephant going amok in your house. How sad for you pundits and politicians, hypocrites. You excise all sinful media from your life, but inside your heart is sinful greed and hate and pride. You blind Pharisee, first get rid of the sin that is in your heart, and then things will follow. Woe to you politicians and pundits, hypocrites, for you are like mausoleums with new paint jobs. Outside they appear beautiful, but inside they are dead bodies in decay. Within they're full of dead man's bones and all uncleanliness. So you outwardly appear righteous to men, but inside there is nothing but injustice, cruelty, and hate. And I don't know if this is going online or if this goes viral. I pray that it does. If you see this, Franklin Graham, be part of the solution. Fight against this evil. Don't defend it. God bless you all, and thank you for letting me speak.
And incidentally, wild elephant running amok in the house is actually the thesis of this presidency. Sorry, I think I'm funny. You know. I am very, very honored to introduce this next speaker. Barbara McKinney is a Madison City Council member. She was elected in 2015 and re-elected in 2017. And when I was asked to introduce her, several people asked me, well, not asked me, but used the phrase in describing her, the best human ever. So prepare yourselves for that. And she was the first of a pretty pathetic 2 African-American women elected to the council. So we definitely need to do better than that. But I'm very, very honored to introduce one of them.
This is amazing. You are amazing. I had to get that out because to pull together this group in such a short time is simply amazing. But why are we here? At what cost? Democracy. At what cost? Freedom. At what cost? Equality. Well, let me tell you. 3 died in Charlottesville, Virginia. At what cost? 19 were injured in Charlottesville. At what cost? You are because I am. Martin Luther King said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Let me say that again. Injustice anywhere is a threat against justice everywhere. As I look out on your sea of white faces, and let me just call it as it is, you can make a difference. Let me say that again. You can, you will, you must make a difference. I don't want you just to come and hold a lighted candle up and sing Kumbaya. I want you to dig deeper. There are places in our own city that you can work. We need you. And just as brothers and sisters marched together during that time when civil rights won its pinnacle, is that we marched together. We sang, we shall overcome. Have you remembered, have you forgotten that song? No. Have you forgotten that song? No. Have you forgotten that song? No. And so I say, the racial divide grows deep and it grows wide. But this storm must pass over. We must stand together to make a difference. Do something. My candle was lit 4 times tonight, and the wind blew it out. But someone came to me and lit my candle again. That is what democracy looks like. Yeah. When we fall down, help a brother or sister up. When our candles go out, make sure you're there to light it again. This is amazing. I stand here in remembrance of the 3 lives that were lost senselessly. How the 3 lives that were lost impacted family, friends, neighbors, relatives, and this seed that I see before me. And how the 19 were injured by a car that was driven deliberately in a sea. Can you imagine if a car deliberately drove into this crowd and many of you would be injured? And so I say to you, do something. Stand together. The message of solidarity is this: not in our day, not in our time. This will not happen. Stand in solidarity. Do something. And if you don't have anything to do, on Saturday at 9 o'clock, meet me over at Elver Park so we can clean up a neighborhood. Bring some bags. Bring some gloves. Let's get to work. Thank you. I am so blessed to be here with you. Do something. Stand up. Make yourself known. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tyler. So a few people have asked, and I just would like to announce this for anyone else who is wondering. We will do a moment of silence after we get through a few more speakers, since we are all fighting for justice all the time, but we also need to sleep at some point, so I want to respect your time as well. So our next speaker is Amber Butita. She is with the Madison Area Transgender Association. She facilitates peer support groups for Madison's trans community and also does communications work for the Wisconsin Transgender Health Coalition. So please give a warm welcome to Amber.
Good evening. Probably poor choice of words considering what we're dealing with today. Sorry about that. Good evening. Not really appropriate words for tonight. I'd like to open with a quote from Malcolm X. "You're not supposed to be so blind to patriotism that you can't face reality. Wrong is wrong, no matter who says it." When I was asked to speak at this vigil, I was speechless. With what words can I sufficiently describe the hurt, the alienation, and the rage that the events in Charlottesville surfaced within me? With what words could I hope to capture the pain or the sorrow that Heather Heyer's friends and family are feeling today? Not to mention the other protesters injured in the clash with neo-Nazis and white supremacists. The LGBTQIA+ community is unfortunately rather accustomed to meeting violence in our everyday lives. Nevertheless, we must persist. We must not let hate and bigotry silence us. We must not let the pain of lost members of our community rob us of our light. We must continue to call out the everyday hatred we encounter. Not only when it happens to us, not only when it happens to a loved one, whenever you see it. Help to turn the tide of our society towards justice and love. Get involved, be your most authentic selves, and spread the love in your hearts. I'd like to close with a quote from Bell Hooks. "I will not have my life narrowed down. I will not bow down to someone else's ignorance." Thank you.
Our next speaker is Scott McCullough with with the International Socialist Organization, or the ISO. It's an organization fighting to end capitalism and the oppression that it creates.
Hello, my name is Scott McCullough. I'm a member of the International Socialist Organization. So Charlottesville is not so different from Madison. It's a college town, kind of a liberal stronghold. They voted 80% for Clinton in the general election, similar in many ways to Madison. And this attack that happened there, and the victims of this attack, could have been any of us. Any of us could have been there. This sort of thing could have happened in Madison. And in fact, a member of our organization, the ISO, was a victim of the attack and was hospitalized. He's doing fine and is expected to have a full recovery. The attack is this attack in Charlottesville, we need to see it as part of a trend. Again, this attack in Charlottesville, the murders in Portland, the battle on the streets of Berkeley. And yet, despite this growth of the far right, we also have the Women's March in January. We have the largest demonstration in the history of this country. With millions of people in the streets opposing Trump's message of right-wing hate, right-wing bigotry, and sexism and racism. So what we need today is we need to unite and to fight. And we need to show that those who are for solidarity vastly outnumber those who are for hate. We need a mass movement that confidently puts forward a real vision of the future. A movement that says that Black Lives Matter. A movement that says that no human being is illegal. A movement that fights for free abortion on demand. And a movement that says that healthcare is a right for all. So to do this, we need to organize in the weeks and we need to organize in the months. We in the ISO are having a public meeting to continue to discuss the roots of the crisis today and how we can get out of it. Our meeting is going to be this Thursday. It's Fight the Right and Build the Left. This Thursday, 7 p.m. in Sterling Hall on campus, University and Charter, room 1313. So what we need to do is we need to figure out how to build a movement that's capable of changing the world. A movement that can have 50,000 people in the streets opposing every single racist attack. And a movement that can inspire people from across the world to believe in hope and to believe that something better can happen, and to inspire those people to join that movement. I want to end with a quote from our comrade who was injured in the attack. Just give me a second here. So Bill traveled from Ohio to Charlottesville to confront the racism and the far-right hatred that was going on. So Bill wrote from the hospital. Said, "I appreciate the support and solidarity from everyone. I hope that what the fascists did is a wake-up call for our side. Racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, and ableism. The right-wingers represent all the worst parts of this capitalist system. If we really want to stop them, we have to be better organized and fight in solidarity against all oppression. Ultimately, we need to fight for a new world that is run for people, not for profit. Don't just mourn for the dead, fight for the living. Solidarity."
Our next speaker is Sheila Stubbs. She is the second vice chair on the Dane County Board of Supervisors for the 23rd District. So welcome, Sheila.
Good evening, my brothers and my sisters. I am the only African American woman, the only African American in general, elected to the Dane County Board of Supervisors here in Madison, Wisconsin. We can do better. How many believe that with me? But by the grace of God, I am what I am. I offer no apologies for my race, my creed, or my color. Good evening, my brothers and sisters and friends and organizers on tonight. I must go back memory lane. Back on December 6, 1997, at the age of 26 years old, I stood with my family in Beloit, Wisconsin, just an hour from here, when there was a Ku Klux Klan rally in Beloit, Wisconsin, that takes me down the memory lane to see that I stood then and I'm still standing now. I wasn't afraid then, and I'm not afraid now. I stand on the shoulders of my brothers and sisters, the civil rights idols and giants, such as Ida B. Wells, who was a fierce fighter, who stood for voter rights, and who was a journalist. I honor the spirit, the legacy, and the dedication of activism of women, freedom fighters, all over the world on today that face adversity while laboring in the leadership of their very own. I am honored that a black woman by the name of Ida B. Wells, who was also a founder of the NAACP in the United States of America, she stood with commitment, she stood with tenacity in the fight, and she faced adversity. No matter how they characterized her, she stood stand, disturbing elements that kept the waters troubled. And on this evening, you might say, Supervisor Stubbs, what do you mean by keeping the waters troubled? That meant she stood when the KKK decided to march anywhere in the United States. They didn't waver then, and that's why I'm not wavered now. But let me talk about Madison, Wisconsin, our home, and Dane County. We have some issues right here in our own backyard. So let's not always look everywhere else when we're not looking right here at home.
Yes.
It might not be lynching in Madison, Wisconsin, but we're still fighting a good fight for quality education, for civil rights, for protection, for fair rights. How about $15 an hour rights? How about voting rights? How about protection? How about equity? How about social justice? How about Social Security benefits that are at threat? How about decent housing? How about accessible and affordable health care? I can hear my ancestors whispering in my ear, saying, serve on just a little while longer, because each time that you're serving, you're saving another life. And so I stand here today because there are some lives that need to be changed. There are some lives that need to be saved. And so today, as I stand here, we must remain steadfast in our efforts to keep the waters troubled on these issues of civil rights and social justice. We know that too often we have the haves and have-nots in our society. And so as we stand here today, our challenge is to reach in and pull back. I said our challenge is to reach in and to pull back. What is your message on tonight? Well, but it's all about us reaching in and a call for action. That's what we're doing tonight. We're doing an action plan about what's taking place in the United States, unfortunately. As we continue, our hearts have room for no hatred. This land have no room for bigotry. There is absolutely no way to tolerate violence, evil acts, terrorism, or any other racial group that decide to raise their heads up in our country, the United States of America. And so I ask you tonight to continue to stand with me for the rights, and not just some people, but the rights for all people. Is there anyone here on tonight that's willing to stand with me, shoulder to shoulder, arm to arm, leg to leg, mouth to mouth, and stand up against these hatred words? I stand up for that mother and that sister that been diagnosed with HIV that's dying at such a rapid pace. I stand up and I trouble the water for our education system that is in trouble. I stand up and I trouble the water for the unemployment rates. I stand up and I trouble the water for poverty. I stand up and I trouble the water for incarceration. I stand up and I trouble the water for homelessness. Will you stand? Will you stand with me? And having all that you do, you stand. And you said, why should I stand now? Because the time is now. And I want to leave you with a simple poem that I recite all the time. You have only just a minute, only 60 seconds in it. Forced upon you, didn't seek it, didn't choose it, didn't refuse it. But yet it's up to you to use it. Give account if you abuse it. Just a tiny little minute, yet eternity is in it. God bless you, my brothers and my sisters.
You know, we've heard a lot, wow, voice cracking, awesome. You know, we've heard a lot from different people about the historical legacy, right? That white supremacy in our country is not something that is new. But one thing that really brings me peace tonight as I look out at all of you is that we are also not new, that we are not the first ones to have stood on these steps, to have listened to these speeches, and to have spoken these truths. And I think that's something really incredible. I know I've said that about a lot of things, but I think it's really incredible. So with that, I would like to introduce Nick P. with the Socialist Alternative. Nick is an activist and organizer, and someone who's just worried about his friends, family, and community.
The events of yesterday made me sick. As Scott said earlier, it reminds me of a couple quotes. We must mourn the dead, but fight like hell for the living. And solidarity is our strength. What solidarity means is that we are willing to stand up for each other and our communities and tell these Nazis that they have no place in our society, that they can't just walk into our towns armed and boss us around and tell us who to fear and how to fear it. We will tell them no, they are not allowed in our spaces.
Yes.
No Nazis, no KKK, no alt-right. I used to live in Virginia. This hits close to home. I'm out here on the streets of Madison, tabling, doing activist work. This could be any one of us. As someone said earlier, this could be any of us tonight, and so we must be extra careful, and we must take a stand now. We can't wait any longer. We can't avoid this issue. We must take a stand. We must stand with each other and for each other, because it is quite clear, as it was demonstrated in Charlottesville, as it was demonstrated in Charlotte or Baton Rouge or Ferguson, that the cops don't care to help us. They just want to stand around while we get beaten and run over. And so we must stand for ourselves.
Stand together.
I hope to see all of you out here again and again until we get the change we need, until politicians are willing to listen to us and stand up for what's right. No more dog whistles. This was a very hard last couple of days for a lot of us. But it's good to see us all out here tonight, and it makes me hopeful for the future. And I think we should all retain our hope, but be cautious and have demands and put them forward and hold people accountable, because we are the ones who must take care of ourselves. So thank you for your time. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for coming out in solidarity with all of you.
All right, our first of two final speakers before our moment of silence is Erin Forrest. Erin is the executive director of Emerge Wisconsin and clearly has some good fans back here. She trains women to run for public office and does it all while being a mother. So please welcome Erin.
Hello. I've been axing paragraphs left and right back here. You're welcome. Many of us are here tonight seeking comfort. And that's okay. But this country was built for my comfort. And if I want to prove to myself that I'm doing enough to fight hatred, to fight bigotry, to fight racism, and to fight white supremacy, I can do that very easily. I can find plenty of reasons to tell myself that I'm doing enough. So I need to seek discomfort. We need to seek discomfort. We need to read and listen to voices of color telling us that we're not doing enough. We need to call out racism in our own communities as often or more often when it comes at a personal cost than when it doesn't. We need to not make or accept excuses. I'm not going to tell you what else specifically to do because we live in 2017 and you have like the entirety of recorded knowledge in human history at your fingertips every day. Use it. You don't need to ask your black friend if you're doing something right. Use the internet. And look for lots of different voices. And look for voices that make you uncomfortable and tell you that you are doing it wrong and lean into them. Don't look for the voices that tell you you're fine. If things were fine, this wouldn't have happened. If generations of women who looked like me did their jobs, this wouldn't have happened. The devil has enough advocates, he doesn't need you. Listen to people of color, listen to immigrants, listen to LGBT people, listen to people who are not like you and they tell you about their lived experiences, and don't argue with them, listen. And when those experiences make you uncomfortable, don't put that discomfort back on them, that's on you. Own it and do something about it. In 2017, there's no excuse for living in a comfortable, homogenous bubble. None. You need to vote for these black women. You need to vote for these women of color. Barbara McKinney was one of two, with Sherry Carter, the first African-American women elected to the Madison City Council in 2015. 5 minutes ago, we had no African-American women on the Madison City Council. Right now, there are no African-American women serving in the state assembly. The first Native American ever elected to the Madison City Council was elected this year. It's unacceptable, and you can do something about it, and you have to, because that representation matters. So I'm going to close by saying one more time, it's okay to not feel like you're doing enough, and if you feel like you're doing enough, you're probably doing it wrong. Get uncomfortable. All right, without further ado, I would like to introduce our next speaker, Eric Upchurch, with Young, Gifted, and Black Coalition. He is the chief visionary at Opportunity Inc. and the founder of the Alliance for Black Economic Empowerment and an interim chair of the Council of Communities. Here is the lead organizer for Young, Gifted, and Black. So please welcome him.
All power to the people. All power to the people. All power to the people. I love it. I love it. But I gotta say, I'm slightly sickened by all of this right now. And surprisingly, it's not about what happened in Charlotte. It's about this. And I'm wondering, what what do you expect to happen right now? I mean, let's just think about this for a second. Let's just think about this. We're all standing here wanting change to happen as we stand here wanting change to happen. So what happened? A ralliers got violent, and 3 people or more were killed, 35 injured, and we're all standing here shouting and screaming and holding candles about this big thing that we all wish would have never happened. And if we could fight that thing and make sure that that thing doesn't happen anymore, we'll have an okay society. But the question that I have to ask myself is, what led up to that thing? What things did we do that we're currently doing right? Those white supremacists, those KKK, those neo-Nazis, those alt-right, those people are regular people. Those people are your friends and your family. Those people are going to get coffee and donuts right next to you. And those people are telling the jokes that you're ignoring. So what do we expect, and what did we expect? What did you do to make Charlotte possible? We're a hair's breadth away from something like that happening right here. And you might be standing right next to the motherfucker that's gonna do it. So, when you stand and as you stand, I'm gonna invite you to ask some of the hard questions for yourself. Because when people say, I'm gonna fight racism and I'm gonna fight hate and I'm gonna stand against this ism and that ism, what do you really mean? I mean, what does it mean in application? I appreciate you for standing out here right now, but what are you actually going to do after this? What does your stand look like? The individuals that are throwing the punches are not impeded by your footprints right here. Your hand claps do not pull those punches. So what does your stand look like, my people? Tell me. And at the very least, tell yourself and tell your neighbors. You can call out, you can go vote, you can do all of these different things. But how does it change the individuals that are making these decisions? Because that's what we're dealing with. You can't policy your way out of bigotry. You're not going to policy your way out of hate. You're not going to vote your way. And some of my politician friends, I apologize, but I have to say, you're not going to vote your way out of hate. These are individual people with individual ways of thinking. And here's the kicker, folks. You're one of them. I'm one of them. And if for 1 second you shake your head and you say that you're not, and that you have nothing to do about this, you are part of the problem. You are the reason why Charlotte was made possible. You are the reason why Madison is one of the most racially disparate cities in the nation. Because you are the people that are failing to take a look at yourself and to see how you played a role in this. We're always talking about them. They did this. I can't believe them. But we fail to realize how we are supporting them, how we are contributing to the isms. So as you take your stand, I'm going to invite you to stand your ass in front of your mirror and take a look at yourself. To stand your ass in front of your family members and take a look at them and invite them to take a look at themselves. How else? It amazes me. We got black and white footage of this same stuff happening. This here and that there. Black and white footage. What have we done differently? Is this exciting to you? To come in and get to shake hands with each other and say, yeah, I'm glad to see you. Is this fun? Is this enjoyable? Do you like coming here because violence happened? No. I'd invite you to look at the daily violence that's happening all around you. I'd invite you to look at the microaggressions that made Charlotte possible, that make racism here in Madison possible. We have a 16-to-1 arrest disparity. 16-to-1. Yeah, it's a damn shame. But what are you doing about it? Saying shame does not do anything about it. And that's why it continues to happen. I'm not asking you for an answer right now. I'm just asking you to actually do. And the first thing to start is to take a hard look at yourself. Second thing, get involved with some of these organizations. YGB and other community groups are organizing a bail fund, fighting to free the 350. But when you say, I'm fighting racism, I'm fighting violence, I'm fighting this ism or that ism, please get specific, because otherwise you're just talking. And you're wasting my time. I don't want to be out here. So with that said, stand for yourself. Stand with yourself in front of the mirror. Ask yourself those questions. You talk about getting comfortable, getting uncomfortable. Do that in the quiet of your own room. And ask yourself, in what way am I contributing to this problem? In what way am I making this an issue? In what way am I standing in the way of real change? And I bet you we'll start to see some real change. All power to the people.
All power to the people.
Thank you all again so much for being here tonight. Before I introduce our last speaker to lead us in a moment of silence, I'd like to just carry off of one thing that Eric said, that we're here to light a candle to honor the memory of Heather, someone who was killed by white supremacy. But ask yourself how many people we have not lit candles for, and ask yourself if you lit candles for Sandra Bland and for Philando Castile, or when his murderer was acquitted. And make sure that even when we do not gather on the steps of this Capitol to honor those lives that are lost, ask yourself, have you mourned for them? As we continue to organize, have you lit a candle even in the privacy of your own home? And make sure that we recognize that our mourning is something that should not be subject to the inequity of racism in our daily lives. So with that, I would like to welcome Rabbi Jonathan Veitch, who is from the Wisconsin Faith Voices for Justice, and a rabbi at Temple Bethel right here in Madison. So, welcome, Rabbi.
Good evening, my friends. I am Jonathan Veitch, as you heard, rabbi of Temple Bethel here in Madison, and I am deeply pained by the reason we have to be here tonight. I represent an organization called Wisconsin Voices for Justice. Sorry, Wisconsin Faith Voices for Justice. Yet our voices are, at this moment, silenced by the shock and sadness that pervades this nation on account of this weekend's events in Charlottesville. A sacred text of my tradition reminds me, that although we are not required to complete the work, we are still compelled to be engaged in it. So we gather here once again, in this case, to mourn and seek catharsis by our presence, but also to rededicate ourselves to the ongoing work of realizing true American values of equality and justice and the striving after peace that give our nation its unique place in the world. On this occasion, I cannot think about anything other than fire. According to the folklore of my tradition, fire was the first of humanity's creations. And it happened just at the end of that first week that we read about in the book of Genesis, of God's creating the world and everything in it. Yet after creating the fire, Adam and Eve discovered that they were afraid of it. And our legends tell us that God demonstrated to them how best to employ those flames which we know can be used for good purposes or for ill. We saw this past Friday night one of the more purposeless and truly destructive uses of fire in Charlottesville. White supremacist marchers used torches to light up that city in support of their cause. And I realized that it might have been always thus, for I recalled that these same torches were employed by Nazi troops and sympathizers during World War II during their pro-Aryan and anti-Semitic rallies. As I witnessed this terror-filled apparition in Virginia, I realized that we have regressed as a nation and a world. We have not learned from our past. Yet we gather here in the same spirit of those concerned citizens, those progressive Americans, and the many religious leaders of all different faiths who gathered in Charlottesville this weekend, and those who are gathering in countless communities as we gather here tonight all across the country to confront bigotry and racism. Our hearts are with the people of the Commonwealth of Virginia who want to redress and resolve the racism in their past. They there, and we here, are being challenged by bigots, racists, anti-Semites, who take many of their cues from so-called leaders in the current presidential administration. Do we even recognize our nation? Do we see in our fellow citizens our best aspirations or our worst fears? Is there a way that the president can remove his moral blinders that have so far shielded him from the truth of the hatred in our nation? Can we ask him to single out the racists, the anti-Semites, and the xenophobes who are antithetical to the true spirit of America? We all can do this. Why does he refuse? Let us go forward from this place tonight to help our leaders understand the depth of our pain and anguish. Let us go forward from this place tonight to ask the president to lead without being forced or cajoled or compelled to offer denunciations of white supremacist groups who are anti-American and anti-human, and not only anti-black, anti-Muslim, anti-Semitic, anti-LGBTQ. Let us go forward from this place tonight propelled by our common humanity and a sense of justice, so that even when white supremacists dare to appear anywhere in our nation, they will be met with overwhelming numbers of counter-protesters to bring forth true American values, not fake values. On this night, let us go forward from this place and offer sympathies and condolences to all those whose lives have been hurt and affected by these bigoted and hateful people in Charlottesville, or in Bloomington, Minnesota, or in Oak Creek, Wisconsin, and the many others that you've heard about tonight. And let us be certain to support those victims in whatever ways they require. On this night, our sympathies are with the families of Heather Heyer, H.J. Cullen, and Burke M.M. Bates, whose deaths did not have to occur were it not for the unforgivable acts of violence and terror perpetrated by the white supremacists who gathered in Charlottesville. Our sympathies are also with the wounded in yesterday's events in Charlottesville. And please permit me to offer this prayer for those who were injured. May the one who blessed our ancestors bless and heal those who are injured and who, God willing, are healing from their injuries. May the Holy One of blessing send blessings overflowing with compassion upon them, to restore them, to heal them, to strengthen them, to enliven them. May the one who is blessed send them speedily a complete healing, a healing of the soul and of the body, along with all the ill among humankind. And I offer this prayer in the memory of those who were killed. May the one who blessed our ancestors send wholeness to the families of Heather Heyer and H.J. Cullen and Burke M.M. Bates, who now suffer at their losses. May you send them loved ones, family, and friends to comfort them and console them, so that they are not alone at this time of grief. And may their memories become blessings in this world. May all innocent victims from yesterday's events in Virginia, may all innocent victims of yesterday's events in Virginia, they and their families, know that good-hearted people across the world stand with them in their cause, that of discovering the true spirit in this country and its values of equality, justice, and peace. I ask us to stand in solidarity and for a few moments in silent prayer to remember those who have fallen and those who will yet rise again in furtherance of these goals. Thank you all for coming. Good night.
Thank you for coming, and please take your candles and wrappers with you. Thank you for a very quick and generous response. Good night.